Hello and greetings to you all. It's my honor to welcome you to today's conversation. My name is Kinley Walsh-Lawler, and I'm with Parks California, the statutory statewide nonprofit partner to California State Parks. As a partner, we're here to help strengthen California State Parks so all people can experience these incredible places today and for generations to come. While we want all people to find their personal connection to nature, I want to acknowledge that we stand on ancestral lands. This land, before it became a state, was stewarded, lived on, and cared for by Indigenous communities. Last week, the California State Parks Commission passed a resolution to rename Patrick's Point State Park to Sue-meg State Park. I would like to thank the California State Parks Commission for taking such action that reflects an example of the state's dedication to rectifying unjust actions. This historical vote brings generational healing, reconciliation, and truth to the injustices made to the Yurok community. I'd like to acknowledge the Yurok community for their resilience and for their request to rename this park to Sue-meg State Park. It's truly my honor to welcome people who have worked tirelessly to restore justice. Today we'll be joined by incredible speakers. Our first three speakers are in person at beautiful Sue-meg Village, all following COVID-19 safety protocols by keeping 6 feet apart. These speakers include Yurok Tribal Chairman Joseph L. James, Council Member Sherry Provolt, California State Parks North Coast Redwoods District Superintendent Victor Belayets, and virtually we'll also be joined by California State Parks Director Armando Quintero, Assistant Secretary of Tribal Affairs at the Natural Resources Agency Geneva Thompson, Secretary for Natural Resources Agency Wade Crowfoot, and Tribal Advisor to Governor Newsom and Executive Secretary of the Native American Heritage Commission, Christina Snyder. Thank you all for being here today. While we'll not have live Q&A at the end of the discussion, you can drop questions into the chat box during today's conversation. We'll follow up within the next week. Now, please help me to welcome Chairman James.
Hi, Neck now, Joseph L. James. I come from the village of Shragon on the lower Klamath River. First of all, before I talk about sovereignty and partnerships, when I think of sovereignty, I think about everybody that has raised us, that's been involved with our traditions, our customs, our way of life, and who has taught us who we are as today as Yurok people and Indigenous people. With that, I want to give my respect, my heart, the people that paved the way to get to this point. Since we were kids and young, our elders, our moms, our grandparents, grandmothers have been teaching us sovereignty since day one, since we were born. So it's historical here today to talk about sovereignty and have it come full circle. I thought a lot about what to talk about here today. Most of my discussions I do have is come from my heart. And so we as Yurok people, we always look in the past, at the present, and the future. And again, it's fitting that to talk about that here now, coming live from the village of Sue-meg. Today is historical, it's huge. It's more than just the name, of what we're doing here today and what our partners here, the state park, the state have done here. And again, the commission, the vote there. And again, I with respect, I want to say thank you for that vote, and thank you for our partners. It couldn't have been done without us all coming together to bring us whole. My heart is full of love and joy and happiness for everybody that paved the way to get to this point. As a young boy and a young man and older now, I danced here many times with my parents, my friends. People are no longer here no more. And so again, today is a historical day for the Yurok Tribe, its people, the community. With that, walk loud. Right now, I'd like to introduce Council Member Sherry Provolt. Let's bring it on that phone.
I Queen Neck now Sherry Provolt. I'm honored to be here with Chairman James today, our friend Victor, family, friends, and community to to honor this day, honor this time, this historical time, and continue the work ahead. We have so much yet more to do, but it's a great honor to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me. Sue-meg, as you know, is a village within the Yurok Aboriginal Territory. It's a village like many villages throughout our area. It's a village that had homes, it had lives, it had ceremonies, it had songs. A place that even today we can go and gather spruce fruit to make baskets and shellfish to eat. It has abundance of berries that we can pick. And I think about the time this village was alive with laughter and song and sadness. But it's, it was a balanced life, the people who lived here, where fathers taught their sons how to hunt, and grandmothers taught and told stories to their granddaughters. Imagine this village then. And when non-natives came, our people scattered, they fled, or they were killed. And now to think that this village over these many years has been restored is breathtaking, heartwarming, and a moment in time that we are all so much grateful for. I want to tell a story that when I was, it was in the early 80s, and I was working with United Indian Health Services, and we were planning an event here at Patrick's Point. And I think it was a hawk walk event. And after the meeting, a respected elder, AWOC, Evelina Hoffman, came up to me and said, "Now remember, this event is held at Sue-meg." And I took a moment and I thought about what she was saying. And she was telling me in her gentle way that even though this name was a non-native name of Patrick's Point, it always was and will be Sue-meg. And that is a lesson that I will always carry with me, no matter where we are. It is our responsibility as Indigenous people to not forget the traditional cultural names of our places. And it's our responsibility to always use those traditional names. There was a moment at the commission hearing that a comment was made that, well, changing the name of Sue-meg State Park set precedents. And I was in my home on the Zoom camera watching, and I stood up, and through the Zoom camera, I said, yes, yes, this will set precedents. It is time, beyond time, that lands return to Indigenous people. It is beyond time that we continue to use the traditional cultural names of these significant places. Thank you so much again for letting me be here to share this moment. And I wanted to end with a video by Margaret Lara, who was one of the many elders who helped restore this place to balance. We'll go ahead and share that video now.
This project, is this something that you've been looking forward to for a while then?
Well, yes, I have. We've been, my mother and I and my brother, we participated in a lot of the Indian organizations, and we've thought about this, and this is we know as Sue-meg, this is the name of this place, because on my mother's side, well, there's a lot of people that used to live around in this area. And so we've never given it up. We've always just thought that it's a place. It's a location for where the Indians live. So therefore, when you know there's a place like you have Eureka, and then all of a sudden everybody's gone, well, you still know that's Eureka, and there should be people on there. The people that lived there before, that type of people.
Are you pleased with what's happening here?
Yes, I am exceptionally pleased. Maybe I don't seem like it, but then I do. If I wasn't, I wouldn't be sitting here in the cold telling you that, you know.
I just love that laugh. You know, what a wonderful story to tell in just a few minutes of time with you all today. I have the privilege of introducing a very good friend, a family member, a person that we've come to love. Victor, Elijah, thank you so much for all the work that you have done for on behalf of the Indigenous people of this area, and specifically the Yurok Tribe. Victor.
Thank you, Sherry. Council member, thank you, Chairman James. I'm looking around here and there's a lot of friends and colleagues. What I really want to identify is that this is a reestablishment of the name of Sue-meg for this area that's been important to Yurok people since time immemorial. One of the things that I think this really highlights is that there's going to be a new generation that's coming up that will only know this place as Sue-meg. And that's huge. My continuing education has been fostered by Yurok folks and Indigenous folks up in this area. Got some geese flying overhead. One of the things that I look at and talk to elders out here and spend time with folks is that you look at a village and you look at education. Sweat Lodge is an area where you would have men and boys that would gather with an elder. I've been referring to that as an institute of higher learning. A lot of the education of women happened around houses, and I started referring to those as women's colleges. The continuous education of people in the US, of people in California that come and visit these places that are on Indigenous lands. It's a continuing education. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful that we can play California State Parks can play a little role in bringing back a name and bringing back ownership to a special place. And I think that's all I'm going to say at this point. And I'm kicking it off to someone, but I'm late. Armando Quintero, Director of California State Parks. Thank you all for your time.
Armando, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. It is my heartfelt pleasure to join you today, and I wish I was at Sue-meg with you. People have lived in California, well, the place that we now call California, for over 10,000 years. And California state parks really are about both the human and the natural histories of these regions in this state. This naming and renaming of Sue-meg State Park is an act of acknowledgement of the culture and the traditions of the Yurok people who have lived here for thousands of years. When you visit Sue-meg, whether you're a first generation born in this region, or even 100th or many 100th generation born in this region, now for all of us, we welcome the cultures of the Sue-meg people, their language, arts, food, stories, traditions, and I know that this will enrich the lives of the Yurok people and for visitors who come here and will get to experience literally the living culture that has been here for so long. And also, it's also an awareness and perhaps a reminder that throughout this state, there are many living cultures that have been here for thousands of years. So to the Yurok people and to my friends in that region, I very much look forward to seeing you there at Sue-meg State Park. Thank you.
Oh, see you. My name is Geneva E.V. Thompson, and I'm a citizen of the Cherokee Nation and Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs for the California Natural Resources Agency. Watto, and thank you to Chairman James, Councilmember Provolt, the Yurok Tribe, California State Parks, and Parks California for hosting today's event in celebration of the reestablishment of the name of Sue-meg for this beautiful area within the Yurok Ancestral Territory. The California Natural Resources Agency includes state parks and more than 26 distinct departments, conservancies, and commissions. I'm honored to be appointed as the first ever Assistant Secretary for Tribal Affairs. A major part with my role within the Natural Resources Agency is to strengthen partnerships with California Native American tribes and to work together to restore, protect, and manage the natural, historical, and cultural resources within tribal ancestral territories in the state of California. The key components to strengthening partnerships with tribes includes early and often government-to-government consultations, understanding and integrating tribal priorities into state policies, funding tribal programs, and increasing tribal ownership, co-management, and access to lands and natural resources. The renaming of the park to Sue-meg State Park is a positive example of what can be accomplished when the state partners with tribal nations. In our continued effort to re-examine place names and to partner with tribal nations, here at the Natural Resources Agency, we have breathed new life into a little-known committee, the California Advisory Committee on Geographic Names. The purpose of the committee is to provide recommendations to the U.S. Board on Geographic Names regarding the renaming of geographic features for official use. We hope that this committee and our many other departments and programs can take a critical look at derogatory and offensive names and find ways to correct historical wrongs in the pursuit of inclusion and access. Changing names of our parks and landmarks is one example of how the Natural Resources Agency is working to act on the promise of the governor's apology to heal relationships with California Native American tribes and to work with Native communities and work to make Native communities whole through honoring their cultural and linguistic relationships with California lands and waters. The Natural Resources Agency is committed to work ahead to implement meaningful reparative change throughout the state, and we are continuously exploring opportunities to strengthen partnerships with tribes, their early and meaningful consultations, integration of tribal priorities into policies, funding tribal programs, and increasing tribal co-management and access to lands and natural resources. Watto, and thank you to the Yurok Tribe and Yurok people for your many years of advocacy, expertise, and leadership around the protection and respectful treatment of Sue-meg Village, the surrounding area, and the whole Yurok ancestral territory. Also, Watto, and thank you to State Parks for listening and partnering with the Yurok Tribe and the Yurok people, and for being a leader for the state and implementing tribal partnership and co-management principles into your mission and programs. It is now my honor to introduce Wade Crowfoot, Secretary for the California Natural Resources Agency. Secretary Crowfoot's leadership and direction of the Natural Resources Agency has been a positive shift in California environmental policy towards inclusion and partnership with tribal nations. I am so appreciative to be a member of his team and glad he can join us here today for the celebration. Secretary.
Thanks so much, Geneva. It is a pleasure and an honor to be here today. What a powerful moment. I know we all would want to be together up at Sue-meg, up along that beautiful North Coast right now, and we're sort of spread across the state. But thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts in observation of this milestone. First of all, our huge thanks to Chairman James, Councilmember Provolt, on behalf of our agency to the Yurok government. Your leadership, your willingness and ability to teach us has been, frankly, one of the most rewarding parts of my job. I have to count the time we spent on the Klamath River with Governor Newsom in a traditional canoe as one of the highlights of my career and indicative of the leadership and, again, this mentorship that Yurok leaders are providing to state leaders and the growing working relationship of that government to government partnership. I talk about our work in state government and in our natural resources as being on a journey. to redress what is a shameful institutionalized history of treatment from the state of California. This journey started when Governor Newsom stood under a centennial oak tree in West Sacramento, the future home of the Native American Heritage Center, and issued a formal apology on behalf of the state of California to tribal leaders for a policy of state-sanctioned genocide that founded our state government. And on that day, which was so powerfully symbolic, he made it very clear that that was the beginning of the journey, but much more was needed in the way of concrete actions to redress historic wrongs and to build true equal partnerships with both tribal governments and tribal communities. And so what we celebrate today is in its own way one such step. Our Natural Resources Agency, as Geneva mentioned, is charged with stewarding our natural and cultural and historic resources. And we do that with the recognition that tribal communities have been caring for the natural world in California since time immemorial. And for the better part of our agency's history, we denied that fact. And we chose to bury our head in the sand and not learn from that traditional ecological knowledge and leadership and stewardship that has helped create and maintain this incredible place we now call California. So much of what we're doing, the work that Geneva is leading, is to change our history, to not be held captive by that history, but to work toward a new day when we're building in tribal leadership, tribal partnership, tribal stewardship into the work that we do across our agency, from the border of Oregon to the border of Mexico, from the Pacific Ocean to the Nevada-Arizona border. And so we are focused now on concrete actions forward to make good on the governor's commitment. And my colleague who really leads our effort on behalf of Governor Newsom, Christina Snyder, will talk in a moment a little bit more about that. But I'll tell you, in our agency, we're focused on expanding co-management of natural resources, identifying where we can return lands to ancestral lands to tribal stewardship and tribal ownership. And relevant to our observation here today, change what have been racist, discriminatory place names. This work actually started last year when the governor supported a proposal to rename a mountaintop in Alpine County from Jefferson Davis Peak to a Washoe place name called Dayak Daugoet. And that happened through an official process, ultimately changed by the federal government, but recommended for change by an entity that Geneva mentioned, a committee on geographic names within our agency. And that to me was the first step. But I have to say the renaming of this state park is more visible and frankly, more powerful because it was led by the Yurok people and the Yurok government, because it had strong allies in Parks California and other non-governmental organizations that are strong allies to Native leadership in these discussions. And I'll say personally and professionally gratifying because it was led by the leadership of state parks. Armando Quintero, our state parks director, making it very clear that retelling, correcting the histories that we tell at state parks is part of our responsibility and our charge. And of course, Victor, who I can't refer to in a formal superintendent way. I mean, at this point, he's everybody up there, it's remarkable, really recognizes Victor as a friend and an ally. And we had an opportunity to hike in the Redwoods this summer, where Victor first told me about the shameful history of the naming of the state park and the effort to change it back to Sue-meg. And it was very clear, just the personal passion that drives his leadership. And so I'm proud of our state parks, our leadership there, the fact that they're leaning into and learning from tribal leadership and ensuring that our future does not have to be our history. Councilmember Provolt shared her experience in hearing this question of, could this be precedential? I agree. This type of action should be precedential. In other words, we're focused on identifying more ways that we can right historic wrongs and ensure that tribal histories, tribal stewardship from time immemorial is front and center in the stories that we tell in our state parks and across all of our departments. There's a lot more work ahead of us. I agree that it's important to mark this moment and take a moment to celebrate all of the hard work that brought us to this day. But we do so with the recognition that, again, we are on this journey and there's so much more good work and important work for all of us to continue to do together. So thanks once again, and I look forward to more opportunities like this to mark similar milestones. Thanks so much for the opportunity to share thoughts. I want to now introduce Christina Snyder, who is Governor Newsom's key partner in all the work that we're doing with tribal governments and tribal communities across California. Christina.
Thank you, Secretary Crowfoot. Good afternoon, everyone, and it's my honor and pleasure to join you to celebrate this historic name change. My name is Christina Snyder. I'm a Mihilikana and Makamo and a member of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians, and I serve as the tribal advisor for Governor Gavin Newsom. I'd first like to acknowledge that I'm joining you from the homelands of the Patwin peoples. And I'd like to congratulate the Yurok peoples for compelling the state to make a small but meaningful change in a place you have called home since time immemorial. Under the leadership of Governor Newsom, the state is committed to better understanding the complex issues facing California Native Americans and is willing to do better by Native peoples. Our approach in doing this work is grounded in the history of the state and its treatment of California Native Americans since its inception. And we're grounded in the firm belief that all Californians are best served when our systems, laws, and policies reflect the diversity and richness of all cultures in California. And we have to approach this work through a lens that fully and honestly accounts for everything our diverse populations have experienced up to this point, or else we risk making the same mistakes in more insidious ways. In working from this viewpoint, the state is in a better position to address current and ongoing systemic problems in engaging and integrating California Native Americans and their valuable contributions by taking a critical and honest look at the historical root for these issues and the state's role in that history. As many of you are very aware, the state has a long history of ignoring, disregarding, or excluding the California Native experience from its work across issue areas. Part of this likely has to do with acknowledging the truth of the California experiment, that there were rich and diverse Native populations up and down the lands that now make up the state of California, and that they did not just disappear when Americans discovered gold. Instead, Native peoples like the Yurok were in the way of new Californian wealth, either because they were physically located in resource-rich areas, or they shepherded and managed lands in a way that stood in the way of environmentally destructive resource extraction practices that we're still dealing with today. At the time, the privileged few decimated California Native peoples and their relationships with the places that served as orchards, nurseries, parks, homes, and shopping centers, and places of worship since time immemorial in the name of creating a new golden state, absent of what came before. To accomplish this, early Californians removed Native people from their ancestral lands, legislated California Native people out of their role in managing these lands, and set out to reimagine this place based on the principles of manifest destiny. The consequences of this shift in narrative and the importation of foreign practices in an environment where they're largely irrelevant and were developed while actively suppressing the knowledges of the people in the best position to understand this land are starkly felt throughout the state today. The state is now in a position to address these long-term injustices, make space for Native people, and reorient how we think about our collective future. In June of 2019, the governor issued an executive order apologizing on behalf of the state of California to California Native Americans for the state's role in their genocide. In addition to apologizing, the executive order established the California Truth and Healing Council, which will examine the systemic and intentional destruction of Native peoples, ancestral lands, and resources as part of its work, and will make recommendations aimed at reparation and restoration. Last year, Governor Newsom issued a policy on Native American ancestral lands to encourage the state to seek opportunities to support California tribes' co-management of access to, and ownership of lands within their ancestral territories. And we're now in the process of proactively working to change problematic names throughout the state under the leadership of Secretary Crowfoot and his team. Last week's name change is something to celebrate in Spain. Yurok has challenged the state to take a critical look at the individuals Californians honor through place names, statues, and other recognition. And in response, the state is making real changes after listening to your voices, needs, and priorities. We understand the pain that comes from Yurok places being named after people like Patrick Began, who committed unspeakable acts of violence against Yurok people. I commend the Yurok Tribe and Yurok peoples for sharing your experiences and viewpoints time and again, even where there is massive trauma, pain, and frustration, and centuries of being unseen, unheard, or ignored. This persistence is finally bearing fruit, and you will now be able to exist in your land with your children, grandchildren, and generations to come without the shadow of genocide looming over this place. We hope that this action can give you some peace, and we are confident that this is one of many, many actions the state will take as we continue in our commitment to do more and better to right centuries of wrong. Yahweh, and thank you for allowing me to share in your celebration today.
You're on mute.
Thank you so much to all of the speakers today for joining us. It's been such an incredible opportunity to hear from you, your personal stories, your histories with this important place, now Sue-meg State Park. As we come to an end of this conversation, we encourage you to stay connected to the Yurok Tribe through their website, yuroktribe.org. And you can also learn more about the Reexamining of Our Past initiative by visiting California State Parks website at parks.ca.gov/reexaminingourpast. And we invite you to go and visit California State Parks, learn about the history of the original stewards of these lands. I now want to welcome back Chairman James for his closing remarks. Thank you for being with us.
What an exciting day for the people of Yurok, for Indigenous people. First of all, I want to thank the Governor Newsom for executive order. I want to thank Secretary Crowfoot for your leadership there in Indian country. And lastly, I want to thank my friend Victor here from State Parks. Victor has provided a template, more than a template, of how to work, how to care, how to roll up your sleeves, and how to work with the Yurok tribe and just in Indian country, and just to talk Indian and be around Indians with his heart. That's what we've noticed from Victor from day one. Victor speaks from his heart and he walks with his heart. And so with that, I just want to say, Victor, thank you for everything you do in our area. Before I close with the song, I was over earlier standing in front of a woman's dress house. I want to first acknowledge the work that has been done here for quite some time. Like I mentioned earlier in my opening statements, I danced here when I was a young boy. Been around this gentleman most of all my life. Played a good part of why I'm here today. With that, I want to take a moment and also recognize Dr. Walt Lara Sr. Thank you for your leadership, your work. Thank you, brother. From heart to heart, I just want to say thank you. Now I'll sing a song. Hello. Again, I just want to say thank you to everybody that made this happen, and continue to, as we move forward, continue to pray for one another, continue to walk the life of balance, continue to pray for balance, continue to care for one another, continue to love one another. Those things that we're all taught, whether it's around the fire at home, outside, around the traditional dance place, again, is to pick each other up. Again, it's a beautiful day here today. Yeah. I just also wanted to highlight the great work that we have done at Stone Lagoon. Everything's coming full circle for us as Yurok Tribe and also Indigenous people here in California. It's a great time now for us. And we look forward to continued work and the continued growth. With that, thank you. Welcome.